sitting in the rain, waiting on the sun to shine.
This is The Poet and the Poem from the Library of Congress. I'm Grace Cavalieri, and we're on remote. We have Cornelius Eady with us, poet, playwright, librettist, professor, musician. Cornelius, how do you like hearing your own music?
Oh, that's good, Grace. That's a surprise question. Of course, I like listening to it. I mean, I'm not particularly in love with my voice, but I have some incredible musicians, and it's such a thrill and fun to play with them and hear them play.
Well, we just heard a bit of Sunshine. So tell us something about making that music, the songs and the lyrics. Tell us how you did that.
Well, that song is the end of a long year, last year, when everyone was in lockdown. And what I did in lockdown was to simply start writing songs, because it was partly to keep the trio together, right? We didn't know what we were going to do because gigs just disappeared, right? They just went, in a 72-hour period. And so we didn't know where we're going to play again, where we're going to perform again. So we just and just to keep our spirits up more than anything else. It wasn't like I'm going to now do this project, but it was sort of like, song by song. And at the end of that process, a producer from the BBC, BBC Radio 4, learned about the project and wanted to do a 30-minute show about my pandemic folk song project, which we now was calling Don't Get Dead. And he wanted an upbeat song to end the radio show. And I was we're all kind of like, upbeat show. I don't want to do it. Oh, yeah, this is the pandemic. But I pushed myself to write an upbeat song and turned it into Sunshine, which turned out to be a really wonderful song, which we love.
Very beautiful. We will be talking more about your music later on in the program, but because you are first and foremost one of America's greatest poets, let us hear a poem.
Okay, I'll do a newer one, a music-based one. This is actually based on a conversation I had with the poet Afa Weaver. And Afa was working on a memoir, and he was on the chapter where he was talking about the first time he heard Miles Davis' famous album "Kind of Blue," and I was thinking, oh, my God, that's right. We all have that. Most of us have that experience of the first time we heard "Kind of Blue." So it kicked off this poem called "Kind of." My friend is writing about the first time he listened to "Kind of Blue" by Miles Davis. And I tell him, yes, I bet everyone has a story, kind of like their first kiss. How did it happen? Where were you? On which of your younger days did Paul Chambers' bass first lick your ear? Did you first think you didn't want anything to do with that crazy stuff? No words, no verse, chorus, music for sunglasses and cigarette holders? Did one of your friends, a convert, drag you to the stereo, fired up by the sight of a world wider than the narrow, invisible rails you were running on? The record is famous for this. The record that readjusts your opinion and you pause. The needle has hit a new groove. On which of your younger days did the afternoon simmer down and that smoothness called out to you, and then everything else?
Simmer down, simmer down. Your word choices are music in themselves. Michael Afa Weaver, had on the show in 1977, so I need to get him back.
Yes, you do.
I think every 45 years.
He's written a lot since then.
He was brilliant then.
Yes.
I think he had Seven Sons Press. He was brilliant then. He is brilliant now. Yes. And so are you, Cornelius Eady. He is the author of many books, 2 prize-winning ones that I can think of. Victims of the latest dance craze won the Lamont.
Right.
A Gathering of My Voice, A Gathering of...
The Gathering of My Name was nominated for a Pulitzer.
yes, was a Pulitzer nominee.
Right.
And you have done many, many things. But let us hear one more poem before we go into your psyche,
Okay. Okay. Oh,
which must be quite a journey.
do you want to go to your psyche? Okay, here's a Billie Holiday poem. This is a newer one. I tend to go back to writing about Billie periodically. You know, just get drawn back to her. And this one's called Trees. Trees. There is a song that Billie Holiday sang concerning trees. She didn't write it, but when she sang, when she opened her mouth, she blew a sickening wind. Ash, rope, the lowering branch, blackened fruit. It was a southern pitch, particular to that soil. When she sang, you'd feel her fabric bleed. Unjust notes turning flesh to butter, unscrewing the cap between here and void. All sparrow and magpie calls polluted. She'd sing this night after night, the last thing you'd hear before you drain your glass and walk back into the world, your city, your block, trees thrumming rough bark in an evening gown. Here you go, the bad gardenia sang. Here's how we rise through strangulation.
Cornelius Eady, pitch particular to that soil. You know, jazz will never die.
No.
Not only because of its sound, but because of cultural historians like you who keep it alive with language. But how did a poet, everyone wants to know how a poet becomes a musician. How do you parlay that great energy that you had for language into sound? How did you become a songwriter from poet?
Well, there's no transition there. I always was writing songs. You know, it's neck and neck, right? Right. When I was younger, I was writing songs. I was in bands. My wife and I
I
were.
didn't know. I didn't
Yeah,
know
my
that.
wife and I were in a rock band. You know, and you know, and I, you know, so I've been doing it, you know, on a parallel course throughout my writing career. It's just that I didn't put more emphasis on the songwriting. At a certain point, as I said to friends many times, you know, and also in interviews, there came a point where poetry got the upper hand, right? It just seemed like that was the path I was really supposed to be on, and I stopped writing songs less and less and less. But at a certain point, like around 2012 or 13, the pendulum started to swing back. And it was partly because I was going through my old files, my old records, my old papers, because I was about to sell them to a library. And I suddenly realized that a lot of those old tapes that I abandoned, that I left behind, was actually not that bad. you know. And the question I had to ask myself was, why did I drop that? I didn't have to. There was no. It really wasn't an either or. You know, in my mind at that time, it wasn't either or. You either have to be a poet or you're gonna have to be a songwriter. And you're gonna have to choose, right? And I chose being a poet. But now looking back, I realized that was kind of a, you know, false dichotomy, as they say, right? You don't have to choose between the two, right? And at least for me, it did feel like I had to choose between the two. And I started to pay a little bit more attention to the songwriting, right? Also helped by the fact that I started to run into some really great musicians, beginning with my friend Robin Messing, who was a poet and a novelist.
Oh yes.
Yes, right. She and I started singing together on these tracks. I started to finish up those old tracks, and I brought Robin in to do some background vocals. That connected me to her daughter, Emma Alabaster, who was a bass player. Her partner at the time, Leo Ferguson, is a drummer, and also connected me to two other musicians, Charlie Rao on guitar and Conchetta Abate on violin. At that time, they were both a duo by themselves, but they also knew Emma. So it was like this little telephone line kind of thing. Everyone sort of knew everybody. And then I got a gig, and the gig was to open to read for Oliver Lake. And I didn't, first I turned it down because for whatever reasons, I turned it down. I didn't feel like whatever it was. And then I thought about it. I'd already started recording with them. We weren't a group yet, but I already started recording. And then a thought occurred to me that, and I called back the organizer and I said, well, I might want to do this if you let me play a set with my band, which didn't exist at that moment. Right? The organizer said, fine, and I called everyone up and said, look, I hope your schedule is open because I have this gig with opening for Oliver Lake. They said, Oliver Lake, sure, you bet, right? Right. So that started the ball rolling, and running into these great musicians started to revitalize that part of my psyche, right? And then we're off to the races from that
So
point.
that is a wonderful story. If you call them, they will come.
Right.
If you get a book contract, you will write that book.
Well,
You got a gig and you got to get your band.
well, the joke I often tell about this, I had to wait for my band to grow up to play with. Why wasn't I playing all those years? I was waiting for my band to grow up.
Isn't that something? I never knew that you had a parallel life. I knew you wrote about music. I knew you were
Yes.
a scholar of music, but I never knew. Well, how did you learn to play the instruments?
I wouldn't call myself. I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter. I use the guitar as a tool.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. But I don't consider myself a guitarist in the sense that I can that Charlie and Lisa are guitarists, right? Lisa Liu, the other guitarist on my trio. They are disciples of the guitar, right? Like I am a disciple of poetry, right? Like you are a disciple of poetry in our own way, right? The idea of the craft of it, the way we inhabit it, right, is or the way we attune ourselves to the world through language, right?
That's right.
It's how we operate. And Charlie and Lisa operate that same way with music. Right?
Oh, yes, that's
Right?
so interesting. We do understand the language, the world through that paradigm of language, but you have so many gifts, it's almost not fair. You should share a little. And so now another poem. Cornelius Eady, Cornelius Eady.
Okay. I'll do a jazz poem. This is about Felonious Monk. And this is about a famous scuffle they had that was done on tape between Miles and Thelonious and Milt Jackson. They were recording a tune, "The Man I Love," on Christmas Eve, 1954. They're doing this, and if you listen to it, there's two takes of the opening. First take is basically they're starting it, and then Miles has second thoughts about Monk playing it because you know how it is with jazz musicians. It isn't how fast you can play. It's the ballad that tells you that proves if you got chops, right, or not. And Miles started to think that, well, Monk being Thelonious, he's gonna just do what he does, and it needs to be pretty and soulful. He's gonna do his fractured stuff. I don't want that. So you hear them starting, and then you hear Milt Jackson starting the head of the song, and then there's a like a commotion, and then you hear Miles's voice going around, lay out, right? He's telling Monk to lay out. I don't want you to play on this, right? And then he goes over to the engineer, was Rudy, right? What's his face? The great engineer, and said, "Get this down, Rudy, all of it."
Oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful.
Then it stops, and it starts up again, right? It starts with take two, right? And then there's this beautiful opening with Milt Jackson, right? It's better than the first one, right? And then they play the song, and of course he's right. When Monk does his solo, he does ba 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 ba.
We have never had such a setup for a poem ever.
I know,
Mike,
too much of a setup.
Our engineer is in heaven listening to you. I'm telling you.
But I've always loved that moment because not only because of the conflict, but also because Miles decided for some reason that it needed to be prime time. That he needed to keep that on the record, right? That's the only reason we know about it, right? So anyway, piano solo, Thelonious Monk on "The Man I Love." On the first take, Miles Davis tells Monk, strange-fingered Thelonious, to shut up, to lay out. It's a ballad. No tinkling brown pixie dust against the groove. No waddling through the measures like an albatross slops up to the skies. Miles is a man who's used to having his own way. And if Monk were a woman, who knows where this might end? But then Milt Jackson rethinks the intro, the hushed tones of a man clearing his throat. before his chords vibrate in prayer. And these 5 men, who seem to have nothing better to do, Christmas Eve, 1954, get back to the lyric. Love is food, water, air. Lonely sucks. Then from out of the negotiation clinks monk, toy piano monk, that stumble bum bird, the boy who will always grab the wrong crayon.
You know what? You make me cry. I'm not kidding. You just make me cry. It's just your heart, Cornelius. It is just your heart that just is in your words. I swear, I needed you today so much. I mean it. I saw Miles the last time he was in Washington, and all he did was one note. He got out on stage and he played. We waited a long time, and he just played one note with his back to the audience.
Was back to the audience, right?
That was, I'll never forget that note.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that note.
Yeah.
And you are memorializing these in such a way that it makes me cry. That's all I can say, that my body does not lie. But we have to go into all of your lives. And one of them is that you are professor of English after a stellar career in colleges, professor of English at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and chair of excellence.
Right.
Tell me this, through your long career, when you encounter people who want to be poets, how do you begin? How do you start? What is the first thing you say?
Oh, well, the first thing they ask me, they usually don't ask you how to be a poet. They're already there by the time they arrive at a program. They've already made some choices and some considerations and changed the direction of their lives, in a certain way towards that, right? And I see, I always see that is like it's the first step towards the invention of your future self. The writer that you're going to, that's the public poet that's going to emerge 5, 6 years from now, right? Right. Those are the baby steps. But that's the desire that's going towards you. And what I do, hopefully, is try to make them aware of what the tools are, what the tools they have, and how best to hone those tools to discover how they want to say what they want to say as they move through experience. Because that's what we do. And again, I go back to saying earlier, but the thing for this is that poets have to learn to be attuned to the world, to language. That's how we do it, right? We're getting to that point where we develop to that point that basically that's the way our bodies become attuned to the world, right? How we process it, right? And I'm hopefully I get there. I'm one step on a longer journey that they're going to be going through. I'm not going to be the only person they're going to encounter, not the only books they're going to read, right? But I'm part of that mix now, and my job at that point is not to get in their way, right? It's simply to show them what is possible and what they can do, and also sort of to push them towards doing that, because sometimes writing is about just taking a chance, taking a leap, right? Or being able to give themselves permission to say stuff they don't think they can say, right? And that happens a lot. We see that a lot at Canem, to bring that up.
Yes.
A lot of times I've noticed over the 25 years we've done Canem that there's some poets, even poets that are in MFA or PhD programs, sometimes reserve the time at Canem to say the poem they couldn't say anyplace else, to write the poem that touched the story they couldn't touch anyplace else, because they feel that that's the only way they can do that. They can't do it in their MFA program. They can't do it, in the academy, but they feel safe enough to be able to say that, and they store it up.
We will want to talk more about Cave Canem, because that is one of America's greatest cultural institutions. But while we have you, one more poem. Make me cry. Make me cry.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna make you cry. I mean, I feel really bad now.
No, I'm not kidding. I needed your spirit. When you encounter a great spirit, I just want to get on my knees and say thank you. And that's what I'm feeling. Your spirit is just incredibly divine. It's just connected to the divine. And that's what these tears are saying.
You are so sweet, Grace. So
No,
great
so
to
go ahead,
really.
do it
Well,
to me.
let me do something that's not beat like that's gonna move you to tears. Hopefully, this is a poem about Aretha Franklin at the at Obama's inauguration. That one thing about that wonderful hat she wore, right? right, and connection to also to my sister. So Aretha Franklin's inaugural hat. Look at that hat. My mother might have said, sitting in that bunker the living room had become, her favorite shows interrupted by the sight of this woman, who once sang my sister through one of her major heartbreaks, and I give then take away man, with a truth which rose through the house. I was too young to know which kind of truth really, and my sister was now learning the words. Her belly would swell from it. Ain't no way, sang the girl who was slightly older than my sister, old enough to teach it. Ain't no way. The needle scratched and scratched again. It's not too far-fetched to think of it breaking skin, a rush of something toxic, tear-raising. Remember when she didn't want to tell us, but told us by playing that damn record all day, over and over in her bedroom. That's the woman that's the woman under that hat, I tell my mother. If she'd ask, that church hat, that black woman's hat, that testimony hat.
That's the woman under the hat, all right. That's the woman under the hat, for sure. Are you on any more of these new poems? Are you on further and farther with more of these cultural icons?
Well, those are kind of older poems. I read the
Right.
first two poems were kind of new. I'm kind of gathering up the next book.
What is it about? What's it going to be about?
I don't. Well, there's a lot of things there's a lot of threads going on right now. One thread is a series of poems I'm writing about Phyllis Wheatley, and the emphasis on this cycle is her, the transition from her own native tongue to English, what it might have felt like to lose her tongue, and then learn how to speak.
How much have you accomplished?
I've got about, I'd say about 12 or so poems done by now.
Just beginning.
Yeah. But it's an ongoing thing. It started from a conversation I had years ago in Washington State, I believe, and with an African American scholar and we were talking about Phyllis Wheatley, and she piqued my interest, my curiosity by saying one thing, saying something. It was like basically reminding me, number one, that Phyllis Wheatley was not. She was a baby when she came over, when she was captured, but she was like 6 or 7 years old when she was captured, and then brought over. And that means that she was old enough to know her parents, name, to know her name, to know lots of people, the village she came from, the people who lived in the village. You're 7 or 8 years old, you know enough about life by then. And what was it like? Because, and if you read her book, her one book, that was published in England, and then
I do know her poems.
Right. You will notice every so often, threaded through the book, she will give reference to the memory of being in Africa. Right. And there was one poem in particular I start the cycle with, where I quote from one of her poems that actually talks about wondering about her mother and dad, wonder how they must feel. Right. The second thing was another thing that, as you know, the book was published in England. And to publish the book, Phyllis and a Wheatley representative, I forget which family member, they went over to England. Now, the moment she stepped foot on English soil, she was a free woman, right? But she went back, right? The book was published. The book was a sensation in England. She whined and she was wined and dined. She was a little bit of Oprah at that moment, right? And then came word that one of the Wheatley's family, one of the daughters of Mrs. Wheatley herself, was ill, and so she just got back on the boat and went back to slavery and went back to Boston. And the scholar asked me, well, why would she do that? Right? So that's the
Uh-huh.
that's the
Why
twin
would
engine.
she do that? So that was the trigger.
Yeah.
That was the trigger. Oh, are these going to be in her voice?
No, they're actually, yeah,
They're in the narrator's voice.
they're in
in
the
the writer's
narrator's voice.
voice. Okay.
They're in the writer's voice. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
pondering.
we're going to hear another song of yours right now.
Oh.
And which one would you like us to play? The Titanic or the love song?
Which love song are we talking about?
It's the one you didn't write yet. Okay, so now we're going to hear a song by Cornelius Eady, who did the music and the lyrics. Okay. And so once again, does it sound good to you?
Yes, it does. It does. It's like I said, the pleasure is also, it's always listening to Charlie and Lisa go at it. You know?
And you know, it doesn't, sometimes probably the creator doesn't have time to sit down and listen to the creation. I bet you don't listen to your own music enough.
Well, no, that's not true. That's not true, because especially this year, because the way we started working, you know, we really just had no alternative but to do it remotely. So what happens, you know, when we usually work, what happens is that up until last year, I would do is that I would, you know, do a rough demo for them and send it to them, and then we'd all meet at my apartment, our apartment in the West Village, and when we work it out there, right?
Oh, you know, I would love to have seen that.
It's well, we just finally got back doing that a couple of weeks ago. That was a thrilling, you know, got back. But for this, it's like we can no longer be in the same room at the same time, right? So how do you work it? So instead of just doing the demo, I send them the demo and then I send it over to them. Then Charlie would add a part and send it over to Lisa, and Lisa would add a part, and then we'd all mix it. Then they'd mix it together, and we have to figure out, you know, how that was working. So it's a slightly longer process, and you really have to listen to the different parts in order to make it work, right? Sometimes we do like something that would have taken minutes for us to do. Sometimes takes hours, or sometimes days to do, depending on
so
what it is. Because sometimes it's like you get the part, and then somehow the guitar is a little higher than it needs to be, and so you have to go back, and Charlie has to readjust it, and that kind of thing. And we did that for a year, you know, but it was a good process, and we got a lot of work out of it. I mean, I think we did about between 50 or 60 songs over that year. That is
so fascinating. That I'm so glad you described that process, because people just didn't know how you were doing this. Well, when you did live performances, where were you performing?
Well, we weren't doing live performances until last Sunday. For the first time in over a year, we played live at Guild Hall in East Hampton, and you know, we did an hour set, you know, and it was great to be on stage again.
You did perform before COVID.
Yes, the way we performed before COVID was that we did the same process to make videos together, right? And then we edited the videos together. So all the videos that came out of last year, it's not us playing in real time. It's just again, you know, we do the song. Charlie or Lisa will set the music bed, send it back to me. I will record myself singing the lead, sending it over to Charlie or Lisa. They add their part, and then they decide who's going to.
Who did the technical though? Was there an
both of them, and that was something that came out of COVID too. They learned how to do it over the year, right? Over last year.
So COVID did create something that we can be proud of, really. I mean, we have overcome. Yeah. You have overcome a wall that was an impossible thing, and you did it. That is very interesting to me. Very well. Before we hear a final poem, we have to talk about the creation of Canem with the divine toy derrick-hot, and it had to be in the 80s, if I remember.
It was 90 something. 96,
was it 90?
96, 90 something, right?
It feels 20 years ago.
It's 25 years. In fact, we're going to do our 25th anniversary starting next week.
What are you doing?
Well, we're doing a number of events. We're starting with a celebratory dinner online, of course, and then we're going to be doing workshops again online. You know, it's going to be like, you know.
Please just tell people what it is and how many people have gone through that magic door.
Oh yes. Canem is an African American poetry workshop. extensively, that Troy and I began, 25 years ago. It was to give a space, a safe space for African American poets to hang and write and create, and just to be. And a lot of people have gone through it. It's been over.
You see these prize-winning poets, and in their resumes are Cave Canem.
Yes,
Aren't you proud?
Yeah, it's also surprising when I haven't done this interview with you for almost 20 years, right? 20 years ago, it was a totally different landscape, right? And a totally different landscape. And you'd be lucky. The conventional wisdom then was sort of like you get Gwendolyn Brooks, and then 30 years later you get Rita Dolph with the Pulitzer, and then maybe a couple years later, it wasn't a faucet. The faucet was a little trickle, right? And over the last few years, over the last 25 years, every poet since Rita Dove who's won the Pulitzer has either been a Cave Canem fellow or had a connection to Cave Canem,
or taught,
or taught at Cave. The connection being by either taught. So it's one of those things where
whoa, we need a book. We need a memoir.
Yeah. We're thinking about that. We're trying to figure out how to.
With the poems that came out. Yeah. Oh, an anthology. A Cave Canem. Got to have it.
Grace, we're definitely thinking about that, but trying to figure out how to make that work is going
to be hundreds of pages.
Right, because there's over 400 people have gone through Cave Canem over the 25 years we've been in existence, and yes, prizes isn't the only way you measure the worth of a poet, but it is really astonishing to see how Cave Canem has had this influence, on American poetry. It's also, made people reconsider what African American poetry is and what it contains.
It always takes one or two people to do something. It took you and Toy to create that. You can't wait for the other person to do it. They will not. You have to do it. You did it. You did it. Yes, and now we have to have a final poem.
Oh, okay, yes. Let me see if I'm having so much fun talking, Grace. I forgot what I was thinking about.
You always you like to make people cry.
So let me see if I can find something.
You don't happen to have the couch on hand, do you?
No, I do happen to have that on hand. The White Couch?
That's an awesome poem.
Oh, that's a great poem to close with. I will do this. Okay.
It's so you.
Okay. All right. So this is about my wife and I, we're renters. We've owned houses since then, but it's one of those things where basically we've been renters for a long time, and then we bought a house in upstate New York, in Greene County. I say house, it's more like, the two cottages, kind of broken down cottages side by side, and the driveway between them. But we never had ownership before. The White Couch that I found on the curb, a door or two down from the new school in New York, just at the moment my wife and I were looking for furniture for our new house. This is how marriage works. Guy and gal fall in love, gal moves in, the bachelor pad with the clean, white IKEA sofa is out. This is the way marriage works. Guy and gal buy house, guy and gal fight over what should go in it. Both problems get settled in the street. I sit on the couch. The couch is mine. I grab my cell phone. I call my wife at work. I found a couch. I cannot move or we lose the couch. The couch is perfect. The couch is free. I wait for Sarah. I guard the couch. Don't touch the couch. Don't consider the couch. And now it starts to rain. I will not move from the couch. And now the sun goes down. I will not budge off the couch. Sarah arrives. The couch is perfect. The couch is free. We guard the couch. We are too weak to lift the couch. We are too few to carry the couch. We fear the rain will soak the couch. We are on the couch, but let's be real. It's New York City. We're easy pickings on the couch. A truck might roll by and take the couch. Maybe we're not meant to have this couch. Maybe we're not worthy. Maybe the Greek gods are having fun with us. Look at them, fools! They will not budge off the couch! Then the torrent, the East Village skinhead, the cops. We need a car to carry the couch. We need some ropes to tie down the couch. One of us must leave the couch. One of us must guard the couch. I am the one who leaves the couch. I am the one who looks for Sarah's mom, who gives me her key, who lends us her car. I am the one who walks the streets searching for hope. Anyone who thinks New York never sleeps should search for a rope after 9 p.m. I drift from grocery to magazine shop. What do they think I'm after? My friend, I need something heavier than twine. I examine package after package like a wine snob. Too thin, too short, not enough heft. Maybe they grunt at what I choose and wait for the headline tomorrow. Oh, yeah, that guy. Night has fallen on the couch. Rain is falling on the couch. My wife is sitting on the couch. What will happen next? How shall we lift the couch? How will we tie down the couch? How far will the couch go before it slips its strings and flies stone-like to the road? And who shall lie beneath the couch? And who shall sue us for this couch? This is where the doorman arrives. He's watched us find and guard the couch. He's watched us find a car to carry the couch. He sees us as we try to lift the couch. This is where the doorman arrives. Like a woodchopper, breaks down the door and saves a red-hooded child, like the wand in the cartoon witch's hand that changes time, space, luck. This is the man who has the rope. This is the man who brings his muscles. And the couch is lifted to the roof of the tiny Chevy, and his rope becomes a tight fist of knots. And he tells us the story of how the couch landed on the curb just before I walked by, and how this happens all the time in the ex-East Bloc country he comes from. Oh, this moving, he says. He says, this is living. This is life.
Night has fallen on the couch. The voice of Cornelius, Eady. This is the poet and the poem. The program is The Poet and the Poem from the Library of Congress. The series is produced by Forest Woods Media Productions. Post-production by Mike Turpin, MET Studios. We wish to thank the Library of Congress for making the program possible. Funding is provided by the Ravada Foundation of the Logan family and the Sinipid Fund. I'm Grace Cavalieri, and our engineer is Mike Turpin.